my greetings.
Well met.
Greetings, traveler. Greetings, friend.
The pleasure is mine.
Hello, travelers, and welcome to Stormwinds. Welcome to episode 303 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, August 5th in the afternoon from Gadgetan, New York. It's me, Ridiculous Hat. From Kerosene, California, we got Bodicus.
What's up?
Stormwind. That's what's up. And from Nomergon, Cleveland, it's Edelweiss.
Hello.
Hello. So, we're going to get right to it. No patrons this week, but thank you, everyone that's supported the show and tweeted at us and all that stuff. It's been, well, we haven't been live for like 3 weeks, so thank you all to Twitch chat as well for being patient with us as we processed all the Blizzard stuff. There's a little bit more of that coming, but also we're going to talk about a lot of new cards today. But yeah, it's new expansion o'clock. So, Life and Ladder. Edelweiss, I always like to hear how poor your sleep hygiene has been when new expansions come out.
Well, the past couple of days have been quite the week. I did not stay up all night this time. Not because I wasn't as excited as Tournamanets, just because, being slightly healthier. I believe I stopped streaming, went and hung out with a friend, and then you streamed at 10, and I caught your stream, of course, while I was still playing. And then I started streaming again when you finished.
That's your downtime engagement. That's your low level engagement of only streaming twice in the first day.
Yeah. Went until about 5 a.m. and then Rachel woke up, so it seemed like the time to go to bed. And somehow, I only managed to get a few hours of sleep. I don't know how that happened, but I woke up and surprisingly, I spent most of the next day not playing, but it was mostly because I needed to unpack. So we finished unpacking, and then it's basically been nonstop Hearthstone since I finished unpacking.
Well, that sounds fun. Were you Legend before the expansion came out?
No, I was just completing quests before the expansion came out.
Oh, okay. Have you gotten there yet?
Came very close today, and then slid back down.
What's the most recent deck you've been playing?
Most recent? I think before I stopped the stream, I was playing some kind of quest OTK Demon Hunter, and that did not go nearly as well now that people have sort of refined lists.
Yeah, people are kind of done with spells. They're kind of like saying, hey, we're okay with all the spell stuff, so there's a lot of neophytes and far watch posts and robes of protection, among other things. And Bodicus, you ran into a forgotten card today, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I ran into 4-Post. I was also playing a bit of Quest Combo DH, and they played 4-Post and then made a copy and gave it Divine Shield, and then did it again the next turn, and so I had to try to go off in one turn, and I was unsuccessful, and then their minions were all double-digit attacks, even though 3 or 4 of them couldn't attack. It didn't matter because the other 3 that could attack would have dealt way more than 40 damage.
I mean, I guess their convictions weren't that great, but I guess they didn't really need them?
No, definitely didn't.
How have you been doing? How's your life and ladder about?
Pretty good. So both of you had made the decision to, stream and stuff, which I don't do much anymore. But so nobody got to see how insane my pack openings were. I can now confirm that I did get way more booster packs than usual. I had a lot more gold than usual because I actually have the whole set on day one, which might be a first ever. I think that's a
Wow.
first ever for me. Unless like I crafted some. I might have crafted like a couple cards to complete the set before, but this is the first time I got it strictly from opening packs, which was
Wait,
pretty
like
cool.
you finished your pack opening and you were just done.
Well, the last pack I opened, well, let's see. So I opened all my normal packs, which was like 260 something, I think, total. Something like that. And I opened my golden packs last, and I was missing 2 legendaries. And then I opened 5 golden packs, and I got a duplicate legendary. So I opened 3 goldens and 5 packs. three golden legendaries and 5 packs.
That's
It was,
fortunate. It's fortunate.
Yeah. I think in all the packs total, I opened 4 golden legendaries. So that was pretty good.
Are they
and
good
other than
ones?
that,
What'd you get?
I probably played more different decks than I ever have before. But I think the one that's sticking with me is actually Quest Rogue, which I'm pleasantly surprised is significantly better than I had anticipated, and been jamming that a bunch. And it's just been fun.
Oh, Quest Rogue. I also have very much enjoyed that deck. I mean, I've been playing as is per usual.
It's like the perfect balance. It feels like a very good balance between original Quest Rogue and the second Quest Rogue, because it's good but also goofy. It's like both at the same time, whereas first Quest Rogue was really good and second Quest Rogue was just kind of goofy, and it kind of felt like it melded them pretty well together.
I kind of see that. It reminds me a lot of like post-nerf Galakron Rogue. Like after Galakron, the cards cost 1, because your SI7 cards are basically invokers, right? And then every so often, then you get a lackey equivalent. And Secret Passage is much worse in the deck because your curve is a little higher, like not a lot higher, and not to the point where you cut Secret Passage, but it feels like a tracking a lot of the time, and that's okay. But then sometimes you get these gizmos, and a couple of them are total blowouts in some matchups. Like if you're against a Paladin, you get the Sapper, as we predicted. It's really ridiculous. And also Spy-O-Matic, the 3/2 that lets you stack their deck. That card is actually so, like, it's aggressively vindictive. I played against an OTK Demon Hunter where I got 2 of those as both of my Spy Gizmos before getting Scabs. And for some reason, they never drew Skull. I don't know. It's weird.
So, I don't understand that card, because I was playing against a warrior, and I played that card, and I thought I put I was like very certain that I put a Rattlegore on top of their deck, and then I played another one later, and I put another Rattlegore on top of their deck. So either I'm misremembering what happened, or it didn't work.
I don't know. It has worked for me where whenever they played the card that they drew that turn, it was the card that I picked. But I don't know.
Yeah, I was very confused when I played
You
the
didn't
second
garrote
one,
them
and
the
I
same
saw
turn,
a
did
rattle
you?
guard. I do not have garrotes in my deck.
Okay.
So I did not do that.
Also,
But
that
I
shuffles your
do.
deck.
I definitely do
Yes,
remember.
it does.
What?
So Garrote wouldn't matter. Garrote doesn't even shuffle their deck.
Yeah. Although I did play against a druid, I played one of those, and then I killed one of their stupid squirrel things, and I believe that shuffles the deck.
Correct. Yeah.
So, so they drew a different card. So I kind of knew that would happen, but
yeah. Well,
yeah.
either way,
Having a lot of fun with that. Having a lot of fun with a bunch of different decks. It's been pretty good. I think the only criticism I would have would be particular cards seeing it a bit on turn 2, but seeing less of that today, so things are better.
I imagine we'll have discussion. And by imagine, I mean the entire Decksplanations section, which is going to be the majority of the show, is just all like talking about Standard for probably like 90 minutes. So if you want to talk about Standard, you're in the right place, because that's what we're going to do. As for me, I have played, as expected, almost every deck. A lot of decks. I've played a lot of decks. I hit 27 out of 27 on the second day in terms of deck slots. I filled them all, except I didn't play before 10 p.m. on the first day. So I'm just hoarding decks and loading them into the client. I'm almost at 27 out of 27 again after deleting most of those. There are just too many cool things to play. There's the spreadsheet that I've been maintaining along with Posca and Wicked Good, and I've definitely played at least something from every single class, I think. Warrior, I think, is my least played class. Just because Warrior doesn't have... The quest really didn't make a landing, and Rush Warrior is kind of the same deck, except like a couple new cards. But there are
Did you ever get to complete the quest? Have you gotten to complete the quest? Because it is sweet. It is so sweet when you have it in play.
Yeah, but I did complete the quest and lost
get a lot of opportunities
that
to
game.
Do that.
Yeah. Well, it's
I crushed them.
Good.
Crushed him my game. I got the one of the free weapons I got was the weapon that prevents all damage to you.
Oh, Bulwark. When you get Bulwark off Juggernaut, it's really
Bulwark
stupid.
Is pretty good.
Yeah, it's really dumb. Because then you're basically timeouting that turn, and then it just sometimes it happens multiple times in a row and it feels pretty stupid. Yeah, I was actually playing that deck and I completed the quest, and I thought I was safe with 3 charges against 5 minions. My opponent was on Hand Buff Paladin, but then they played Conviction, Wind Fury guy, and I died, so. That'll happen. But the most recent deck that I've played a lot of is Quest Rogue, and I did get Legend with Pheno's version. I got both of my SA7 Assassins. I opened them both in gold, which is good because I was going to craft them anyways. And yeah, that deck's super fun. Let me just look through all these. I really like Quest Druid, which is definitely a thing. We didn't think it was going to be a thing, but it is a thing. It definitely feels a little prototypical right now, but the first game I played, I got the list from McBannerface when he raided. Thank you, Banner. And the first game we played, Edel, I think you were there. I was able to Solar Germination a Park Panther on turn 5 because I started the turn. I played a Park Panther the previous turn, and then for some reason my opponent let it stay in play. And then we had 3 Park Panthers, and then the following turn my opponent conceded. So that was a very enjoyable experience. I don't know. I played some of the mage deck, but not a ton. I played a couple. I had a hero power quest on day 1, so I played some Braza Hunter, some Quest Hunter. It's okay. That deck is definitely missing stuff. Hand Buff Paladin, the minions are all huge. Priest. Oh, Priest. Shadow Priest is where I'm going to get my 1,000-win Priest portrait. I'm 23 away. Zetalot put out a deck. And he said, I don't know how I got top 200 with this. Do not craft it. So I immediately put it into the game. It is a Shadow Priest list that starts at 1 mana and tops out at 5 for the Benedictus, which you have to play. It is a requirement. That is the Baku for that deck. But it includes Elven Archer. It includes Frazzled Freshman. And just a whole bunch of other really wacky cards. And I killed someone on turn 5 with that today. My co-host can verify. They both saw the replay. It did happen. Now, should you play this deck?
You did have a 1-mana 2/5 with Taunt that did a whole lot of work for you in preventing all of your other minions.
The Homunculus was quite good. But I'll post the replay in the chat for anyone that wants to see it. And I'll put it in the show notes. I don't expect this to happen every game. But so far, I played 2 games with this deck. 11 turns total. I won both games. Just saying. 1 mana Raid Leader, the Void Touch Attendant, the 1 mana 1/3. So the text is all players take 1 extra damage from all sources. So normally you have spell damage. This isn't spell damage. This is card damage +1 to both heroes. And so when you're doing Elven Archer, that deals 2. When you attack with a 1/3, that deals 2. When you hero power them, that deals 3. So on and so forth. And so when you play a bunch of crappy minions, and you go wide early game, and then you hit them, then you win. Though it also plays Dragon Maw Overseer, the 3 mana 2/2 at the end of your turn, give another minion +2/+2. The other game I played with it, which I didn't send you the replay, turn 1 Frazzle Freshman, turn 2 Coin Overseer, turn 3 Overseer. And then I had a 7/10 Frazzle Freshman, and then they died. I don't know. There's so much going on in this environment that it's hard to really tell what the real thing to do is, but I can say that out of all the things I've tried, they're all pretty fun. They're all pretty fantastic, so I'm enjoying the meta a lot. Why don't we talk about it, though, after we get through the news, because there's a little bit of news we have to talk about, right? Just a little bit. Let's go.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
So, I do... We're here to talk about the game and the cards and all that, but we told you last week we'd keep tabs on the goings-on at Blizzard, and this one's kind of important. Because J. Allen Brack, the president of Blizzard, resigned this week. I think we saw this coming. I think we talked about it actually last week. I know we talked about it in the Discord. I think I said I'd be surprised if he made it to Labor Day. There were a bunch of changes at Blizzard. The head of HR was out. There were some changes from the top down. It seems that it's mostly executive and director level. The parent company, Activision Blizzard, doesn't seem to have any staffing changes right now. And the new leadership at the company is there are two co-leaders, co-CEOs, I guess. It says interim on the org chart, but they're co-leaders?
Yeah, I think the language here is very intentional.
Yeah.
And it's kind of uncomfortable. I don't know. I think for those that are looking to see Blizzard come back, it's kind of like Mike Morhaime went away and we went from Activision and Blizzard each having their own CEO to Activision CEO, Blizzard president J. Allen Brack. And then now J. Allen Brack steps away and you have two co-leaders of Blizzard, but they don't even have that president title.
Yeah.
So there is kind of this like eerie creeping of Activision control.
This isn't really a creep so much as a grab, it seems. And just an interesting note, if you look closely at the resignation letter and the statement made on the Blizzard news site, it says, starting today, J. Allen Brack will be stepping down as the leader of the studio. Not the company. Blizzard is now referring to themselves as a studio. That's a new thing. And that's what you call a part of a larger company. So this sure seems like Bobby Kotick taking more control. And also of note that the new co-leaders, Jen O'Neill and Mike Ybarra, both have a long history of success. Jen O'Neill was the studio head at Vicarious Visions, which has been acquired by Activision Blizzard, and Mike Ybarra came from Xbox, and he was the platform lead. So they're both very experienced, very tenured. They're also both new to the company. Mike joined in 2019, and Jen joined, I think, even more recently than that. So this is... If you want change, you got to get change somewhere. This is change from the very top. Now, these are not the demands the employees asked for. There's still a lot of work to be done. This is the beginning, not the end, and a symptom of pressure, not the cause of a solution. But when the president steps down, new people come in, and then the head of HR is gone, I think it sends a pretty clear message. And while I agree with you, Edelweiss, that the soul of old Blizzard is gone, it is unclear at this point if old Blizzard was worth protecting, or if that was an illusion that we had because the quality of their games were so good. I'm not here to comment on that, I don't know, but it's worth noting the change that is being asked for. This is a way to do that at an organizational level, or at least start it, even though the real power here remains with the employees, and also the real guidance should be taken from the employees themselves, who have had a very clear list of demands that I hope is met.
Yeah, and to be clear, I am glad that there is change. I think that I'm hoping this results in forward progress. I am just slightly concerned about the language, and it feels to me sort of like opportunistic. We'll see if it matters or not. I mean, maybe it's just that it's language and nothing is actually different, I guess, probably. But it feels as though Activision may be trying to make a push to say, like, look, this was a Blizzard problem, and we are Activision, and kind of try and do some weird branding in that way.
Maybe, but Activision not blameless. I don't know. So either way, definitely check out the statements. Definitely check out check out what's said on the website, and then there are some follow-up tweets and conversation going on about this, but we don't really have much information going on here other than we strongly recommend checking out what the employees are saying and following there's a new Twitter account, a better ABK, I think it is. Yeah, let me link this in the show notes here. A better ABK is definitely the account that's worth checking out. Let's see here. I'm going to put that in the show notes. And this is run by the employees. It doesn't really have a specific person attached to it. It just seems to be showing what the employees are looking for. That's where I'd recommend getting as much news as you can to hear from the employees themselves. All right. Now, anything else happened this week, Botticus?
So an expansion came out, as we know. There were some as with any large patch, there were a couple small issues, I would say. So the Battlegrounds perks were not in the shop, but that issue has been fixed. Something I noticed is people were not getting credit for Dungar towards the achievement to get the Diamond Benedictus, but this has also been fixed for those of us that have all of the legendaries in the set. Jewel Kit, I noticed, has a couple very interesting scenarios going on with it. So Jeweler's Kit is the paladin weapon that whenever a divine shield goes away from a minion, it gives all minions in hand +1/+1. It was triggering
all the time.
Just all
on
the time.
Anything.
On anything except destroying the minion.
Yes.
Destroying
Have you
the
seen
minion
the glide
wasn't
thing?
triggering it.
Have you seen
Yes.
the glide thing? The glide thing is amazing. That, like, someone just sent me a replay and it's like, is this supposed to happen? Where they got glided as they were the paladin, their opponent glided them, and their minions just all got +3/+3 instantly. And it's like, what happened? Because they had divine shield minions in their hand that changed zones, that got shuffled back into the deck, and apparently that counted. It's very, very sensitive right now. So Cora tweeted about that and basically said, hey, something seems like it shouldn't be working, then it won't be working. They're going to fix it. So I would imagine that we'll get a patch for that relatively soon. I know there's a couple other known issues.
Yeah, so the Priest Quest is bugged and only looking at the base cost of cards, not discounted costs. Garrote and spell damage is not a bug, so should be working as intended. Stealer of Secrets, when you're on low health, is not bugged. Even if you have Tasman active, you can't pay life you don't have.
Yeah, and we knew that when we were dealing with it in Wild for when the deck was just called Stealer, right? The plot twist combo deck, where if you were at a low life total, even if you were immune, you couldn't pay the life. This is the same thing. Even if your opponent is footing the bill, if you don't have the life to spend, then you can't spend it. So that is not a bug.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I think that's always been the case, like for wild decks as well. It's part of why counterplay against Warlock can get them low enough so that they can't actually pay the life for their things.
Yeah, the way the game checks for it, it has to make sure that your life total is higher than the number on the card. What happens after that, it has no idea, but it just checks that the life total is higher than the number on the card. So,
and also, I guess there's this post here that says there's 2 other issues where some duels players were not transferred to the next duel season, and also Pave the Way, which is the second portion of the Paladin quest line, does not upgrade duels only Paladin hero powers. Do duels only Paladin hero powers have upgrades, or are they stating that as fact? I'm confused.
I'm guessing that you can. I'm guessing it doesn't do anything when it's probably supposed to. Players are likely expecting to get the 2/1/1 hero power, and my guess would be that it doesn't do anything. That would be my guess
too.
Yeah, because like upgrade is kind of a misnomer because what it's actually doing is it's giving you a specific hero power, the 2 mana make 2 1/1s, but I think it might check for do you have the starting hero power, the normal starting hero power, but obviously you don't in duels. And we have a question in the chat, aren't the quests banned from duels? So the banning is only in buckets and discoverability. You can't find them, but you can build your deck with them.
There was one other thing that I at least heard about. I would think is a bug, but I'm not sure. And there's a weird thing. I guess someone hexed 4-Dragon, and it counted as losing Divine Shield, which was pretty weird.
I wonder if just the losing Divine Shield thing is if that triggers the same as Jewel Kit.
I had a minion get a devolving missiled the Divine Shield away, and it triggered.
That's definitely not supposed to happen. Yeah, it's probably the same script for both.
It lost the Divine Shield, kind of.
Kind of.
Bolvar's always worked that way. Interesting. I guess a fringe thing just sort of brought more noticeable. It is not intuitive, for sure.
Yes. So we're lucky enough to have a developer from Blizzard in chat. Hi, Celestalon. Thanks for tuning in. And he mentions that Bolvar has always worked that way, but they're changing it. So, for those of you still playing old Bolvar, get your reps in. Because as all 2 of you, if you listen to the show, thank you so much for tuning in, and we appreciate you keeping Bolvar around. But old and new Bolvar, that's not gonna happen anymore. I would guess that the way it's scripted is that it just checks if a Divine Shield changes zones, but I don't know. Yeah. And also, there is a brief note here. There are some issues with there were at least, with the Asia server having connection issues. I don't know the specifics on this at all. I never play in the Asia server, but it was important enough that Ahirun and then also Chad had to tweet about it. And so that if those 2 people both tweet about something, it is important to me. So there are network issues that are apparently based on routing outside of the Blizzard servers, but I believe it is being addressed. Shannon, I think. No, Alicia, one of the game producers for Hearthstone, tweeted that it is being worked on. So I'm hoping that it is better today, because that was as of 1 a.m. Eastern last night. So it seems to be improved. Yeah. So, ready for a brief tournament talk? We're gonna set a record.
I sincerely doubt that. I know what the length of our shortest tournament
10 seconds.
Been.
10 seconds or so.
If that.
I think it was me shouting there weren't any, and then I played the bumper. Okay. Well, we're not gonna break that record, but it's gonna be brief. Let's go.
It's the Grand Tournament!
All right. So, Dreamhack. Wyrer won EU. Juman won Apac, and Orlando DR won North America. It finished right before the new set. I'm not going to talk about any more Barons meta because I am done with that meta. Grandmaster starts August 23rd. And for those who are brave, there are qualifiers happening right this very moment, even though the set has only been out for 2 days. I'm going to check the standings here. I'm going to click the top person only. Capilano. Capilano is playing Elemental Shaman, Hand Buff Paladin, Quest Rogue. Nice. Who knows what the meta's really going to be? But this has been a brief snapshot of 1 3-0 player on an Asia qualifier. It means nothing. Let's go to Decksplanations. One thing before we go further. We're actually getting this information from chat, and I remember seeing this and then not writing it down because I've been distracted by playing Hearthstone. There was a tournament, TGS, a Canadian tournament that was actually canceled because of all the stuff going on around Blizzard. I believe Wicked was actually supposed to cast that one. So, a couple tournaments that are, at least that one, and I believe there were some issues with Overwatch League losing sponsorships, but I haven't verified that one. I remember just reading briefly about that, but I don't know for sure. Okay. That's Overwatch League. We're a Hearthstone podcast. So, new standard. Edelweiss. What's up?
All right. Well, what are our initial feelings? I know for me, it's tons of fun, but this is super not what I expected. It's just way faster than I anticipated. I think we did guess things were going to get a bit faster in some ways with like Battlemaster. I mean, that card just ends games.
I think that I can agree with you that we did not expect the format to take this particular shape. And like not just Battlemaster, but like there's a lot of things going on. But yeah, there were. We expect when we go from 4-set to 5-set that things are going to get more powerful, and they definitely got more powerful, and there's definitely a lot more variety. But also, just the way that Hearthstone feels right now is a pretty significant departure from Barons. I can tell you, nobody is playing Alex anymore. They do not have to nerf Alex. I have not seen one in a deck list, let alone in play or in hand.
Oh, I have. I've gotten Alex a couple times. Not nearly as much as I did in the last meta, but it definitely was still happening. But I think it's probably working its way out of a lot of lists because a lot of games aren't going to turn 9. It feels like turn 9 is a long ways away from when most games are ending.
Turn 9 feels extremely optimistic. Like my initial builds of Hand Buff Paladin had Varian, and I don't know, maybe it's still okay, but I've definitely seen some instead top out at 6 with Cornelius because they're really just about landing a few minions and then you go Conviction, Battleground, Battlemaster, kill you, and enter bonus damage plus Battlemaster here is kind of what the aggro decks are doing right now. Even the quest rogue you were talking about earlier. I had a game, I completed the Demon Hunter quest on turn 4, played Kurtrus on turn 5, and then I died. I did not untap after playing Kurtrus on 5 because my opponent went Nitro Boost, Battleground, Battlemaster. They must have prepped the Nitro Boost or something. And yeah, I was dead.
That'll happen. Yeah, like Battlemaster I think is one of the ways that minion decks are really speeding up right now. But also I think part of that is definitely how the format has not really had a huge focus on minion decks in the first couple days. Because I think if you look at the memes going around on day 1, the format was being described by many as solitaire. Now, those sentiments have since died down and calmed down, and day 1 is not the whole format, but there are a lot of very powerful things happening in Standard, and high life totals are not safe, especially if you're against Mage or Warlock. Bodicus, what have you been dealing with?
Yeah, well, obviously the first deck I tried to make was a Quest Shaman deck. Quickly realized that you can very easily kill your opponents without the combo. With the Bolvar, Yogg?
Oh, Bolner.
No, not Yogg.
Bolner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bolner.
Remember how everyone's excited for that card that is in, like, 0 decks right now?
Well, yeah, because you need to get to turn 10. And let me tell you, double Tidal Surge doesn't do anything when your opponents have +3 spell damage and still kill you in 1 turn.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it feels like if your deck isn't able to consistently complete your quest by turn 7, play the quest reward by turn 7, you're probably too slow and you're gonna get killed by something else. But yeah, I mean the minion decks for me started more popping up today. I think people are figuring out how to kill people with minions, and but yeah, I mean, day 1, I was very much not enjoying playing against Incanter's Flow on turn 2. That was I think if there was any criticism, which I don't even think it was a big one, it's just that I did not particularly enjoy my games where I was playing against Incanter's Flow. but I also played a fair bit of Incanter's Flow, so I was not part of the solution that day. I also was part of the problem. So it's so crazy though, because like Quest Mage actually feels so much more fun to play than just Spell Mage does, because there's so many more moving parts that you got to pay attention to, so much more thought that goes into it, instead of just, you know, play the most efficient thing possible. But then you get that quest reward and you just, you know, the game just ends the next turn most of the time. It's just yeah, the Incanter's Flow feels not so good.
Have you
When
been playing full spell versions, or have you been doing gadgets?
I mostly just played it like towards the end of day one, like Tuesday night. So most people hadn't added the auctioneers in at that point. That I was playing it. I just asked Hat what I should play, and I think he said Zakos. And then I played that for a while, but then people started playing minions, and it felt way worse because you have to just discover your own minions and then use your spells on your own minions to be able to complete the quest in time.
Yeah. And the mirror is super weird, because you've played a bunch of mirrors, right, Bodicus? The figuring out how to maximize your frost spells is really fascinating, because you have to, like, the best thing I found to do is, like, Primordial Studies into a Thalnos or something, and then you brain freeze your own minion or whatever.
Yep.
There's a really fascinating push and pull in the mirror, and it's, you know, some lists, Nails is actually, he cut a Pexus Blast because it's too slow, and instead added Counterspell. So it's so cheeky is the word I'm going to use. There is a lot of depth to it, and, you know, flow on 2 obviously, but you can't just play your spells however, and and you really want to be able to hold Cram Session, but sometimes you need to use it for the quest tick. There's a lot going on, and it's fun. And, you know, Spell Mage...
Oh yeah, and also Ice Barrier was like okay for a bit, and then it became useless because nobody was attacking with any minions. Yeah. But now it's probably back to pretty good again.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny how I think that deck was so good on day one that it changed the meta in a huge way that made it not good, and I think it'll slowly get better again as people play less tech cards.
It's format warping, right? Like, this is kind of what happened with 3 posts, and right now that's what's happening with Cult Neophytes and Far Watch posts to a degree, or in your case Crossroads Watch posts, which that's not an experience that I've had quite yet. I haven't seen an Ogremancer yet, but I'm sure they're out there. Remember that we had no Minion Mage basically completely built, except for Springwater and Deck of Lunacy, in Ashes. We got Deck of Lunacy in Darkman Fair, and then we got Rotation and Springwater, and both those were huge, but the deck is the same, it just was better. And then also Deck of Lunacy, which was a mistake at 2 mana. Just not correct at 2 mana. So now it definitely feels like a different game plan.
I'm also glad about the Springwater nerf. I just also think I kind of hope, like, because the deck is so much fun, and I think it's probably still viable without flow. Like, obviously flow turns it from just a good deck into probably too good, and you know, maybe you need it because the other decks are also very powerful, but I don't know, it just I love playing Quest Mage. I just don't like the feeling of you know, just them playing a bunch of spells that got reduced a bunch.
There's a weird kind of back and forth that happens, I feel like. So Quest Mage was still, you know, decent at the end of last meta, but no longer positive win rate. It really had fallen off. And previously, we would not consider running Flurry because without that spell damage, you really needed as much of your deck to like be optimized for burning their face as possible. You needed those Mask of Cthulhu's, etc. And then you even still had Lunacy for a high roll. But once you have the guaranteed +3 spell damage that can never go away, as well as, very importantly, Ignite, which is just infinite damage over time, it's okay to kind of be less efficient with certain card slots just for quest completion. So people running Flurry, of course, because it's one of the good frost spells. We had said, oh, I'm not sure there are enough good frost spells. I specifically said this. It's like Flurry, Brain Freeze, and I guess you run either Barrier or Cone of Cold. We stopped running Cone of Cold pretty quickly. But it turns out
some
that
people did. Other people didn't, and it makes me mad.
And devolving missiles also hasn't been a consistent inclusion. I think it's coming back now because of Paladin, but there were definitely points where we cut it just because the meta moves so fast. I mean, it's calling it a meta is almost a misnomer. It's not really an environment yet. It's we see what's popular, but what actually is working and will stick around, we don't know, just because things are moving so fast. But yeah, the card choices have come in and out, and they've changed. And what surprised me as well, to speak to your point, Edelweiss, you also don't need quite as much card draw because the quest line individual rewards are huge. They're so important, and they really, really, really make a big difference.
Yeah. So, and Ignite is amazing. Like, I love Ignite, and I'll be really sad if it's what ends up getting a nerf, if it got set to 1 damage or something to make up for the fact that it kind of goes infinite later on. Day 1, I was playing just like Fire Mage with minions. It was basically a spell damage deck with Egwin and Chandler, which feels so cool. I love Chandler. But pretty quickly, you started sort of making your way towards like, okay, it looks like the quest I was wrong about. It's actually pretty good. Started playing quests, and I was like, what if my only minion is Fire Chandler? And then I was like, oh yeah, we have gadgets in Auctioneer. And I came across Orange's list. So I've been playing more of the Auctioneer version rather than the full spell version with the Pexus Blast. It's definitely got, minus strengths in some areas, plus strengths in others. But when you get to that point where you play your Auctioneer and you have a couple of biscuits, and it's just like the only things left in your deck are Ignites, and they just keep ramping up damage. You do so much damage in a turn. It's completely absurd.
I like that deck a lot. It is much, much harder to play than the version with no gadget. It's way harder to play, but the combo turn, much more satisfying. Because you just go. You just go. And that's the thing about a bunch of decks in this format. I was playing the OTK Quest Warlock, and I didn't quite understand how it worked. And then my chat is like, okay, no. You mulligan for Admission and Rod. And when you have Glare, Stealer, Backfire, then you go, and you have to play fast because the APM is the thing that will limit you from doing what you want to do. So that's sometimes how it feels with Gadget Zan, and there are a few Gadget decks going around right now. I don't know how long Gadget will last because it tends to be a fixture of week 1 goofy decks, but right now it's doing okay, and the turns are very satisfying. At least to play with. Play against, not so much, but can't win them all. But yeah, Quest Mage as well.
Like those turns are not as bad as the Rogue Garrote turns, just because people are still learning how to kill people with Garrote and spell damage. I played against so many rogues that are just like, you can tell they're just trying to figure it out. They're like, all right, I can win. The question is, how do I win? And they're like pinpointing it, and the rope just always goes on forever. But I have to respect it because it's a pretty cool deck, honestly.
Yeah,
in that one,
it's not a deck to learn on the fly. You don't want to try and figure that one out as you go.
That one I saw someone just swapped out Auctioneer, put it back in Field Contact, top out at 4-3. I really loaded the curve.
Oh, that's Donkey's list. Yeah. So the list that was making the rounds a couple days ago when Fino said this is going to be hot fixed. I know we're jumping around to a different deck here. The mechanism of this deck, of this, I'm holding up quotes OTK deck, is you put the bleeds, Garrote bleeds scale with spell damage. This is intentional, not a bug, as we mentioned. So your goal is to get a bunch of spell damage, and then you draw your deck and you get a bunch of bleeds. So when you go 3 mana, the sketchy information, which is draw Death Rattle that costs 4 or less from your deck and triggers Death Rattle. You get a Loan Shark, which is Battle Cry, give your opponent a coin. Death Rattle, you get 2 coins. So, when you play sketchy information, then you draw the Loan Shark and you get 2 coins. You can play the Loan Shark again if you want to fill your hand and overdraw something important, or you can just leave it in your hand, whatever you want to do. And then the goal here is, with bleeds in your deck, you go Gadget Zan, play a bunch of coins, draw a bunch of cards, you use your Ethereal Og Merchants to gain more spell damage, and then you draw your deck, and every so often you just get a free Wicked Stab. And it's kind of fun. And then your opponent dies. You also have Cloak of Shadows, whatever. The deck is hard to pull out of the algorithmically identify. It's difficult to do, right? Because the rogue cards all kind of blur together. And if you only evaluate based on Gadget, then you're only evaluating the games where the deck wins, which there are not very many of those. But overall, the win rate for this deck is on par with Mozaki Mage in Scholomance or Celestial Alignment Druid in Barons. It looks flashy when it wins, but that player's been working all day to get that one win. Just let him have it. It's okay.
Man, Hockey Boys had me all excited about Celestial Alignment Druid to beat all the quest decks, and then I just kept getting smashed.
That was a strategy for about 6 hours. It was good for 6 hours.
Yeah, I kept going. I would go turn 1. What was it? I just remember coin Wild Growth into Overgrowth into Celestial Alignment and still just getting demolished. Every game still just getting demolished. I'm like, I'm doing exactly what the deck's supposed to do. How am I losing? But it happens.
Yeah. And you were right. Losing is what the deck is supposed to do.
Yeah.
So
I got my couple of wins with Celestial Alignment, and then saw how the meta shifted while playing other decks, and was like, yeah, I probably shouldn't play Celestial Alignment again. That sounds like a good way to die to all these Battlemaster decks.
I was playing Quest Rogue, and my opponent played Celestial Alignment when I had 4 minions in play. So I played a 1-mana Cult Neophyte, attacked them for 12, and passed the turn. They conceded the game. They were unable to beat my Cult Neophyte. Yes. And let's just talk about the OTK-ish style decks here, because there's Mage, there's Rogue, and then there's Warlock. Quest Warlock. And the Warlock quest is super interesting.
And Quest Demon Hunter.
Oh, yes, and Demon. Well, and the Demon Hunter OTK is exactly what you think it is. It is the old OTK deck, except they play the quest now instead of Skull, which is a terrifying thing to think about. And Skull costs too much now. But they have Illidari studies to get it anyways. You just want cheap stuff. You just want cheap things. So, and I'm not actually sure if the deck is better than the old build, but either way, it's good enough right now to be okay.
It's a tough call. I would say it can be easier to make sure you'll be able to pull off the combo. You never get screwed because Il'gynoth is blocking your Skull or something like that. You can sometimes disrupt people with a well-timed glide, especially against hand buff Paladin if they've been buffing a whole bunch of things and you're like, cool, glide. You can lose all those buffs now. So it has its moments, but it sacrifices some of, I think, the defensive tools you could have from the regular OTK Demon Hunter. I'm not sure which will come out on top, but like I mentioned, you can complete the quest fairly quickly. I was able to play Cortrus on 5.
Yeah. And I will say what is more important than I expected is the individual phase rewards of discounting the cards you just drew that turn. That's the real reason to play it, is to get the early game cost reduction on your combo pieces without having to play a 6-mana card. And that's been really, really important and powerful. But otherwise, it's about the same.
It feels so much better just because you don't get outcast blocked as much. It really doesn't feel like you can. It definitely can still happen, but it doesn't feel nearly as nearly as hurtful as when you just like have Il'gynoth, you mulligan into Il'gynoth on the left hand side, and you're just like,
Yep, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, and you're just like, all right, well, this game, I can't win this game because I'm blocked.
Yep. And then there's also Quest Warlock. So the Warlock quest has a lot of depth, and it's interesting, and there's a lot you can do with it. There's a zoo list going around with, like, Hecklefang Hyenas, the 2/4 that deals you 3. Your Flesh Giants just trigger basically instantly because you're constantly damaging yourself, and then the lifesteal also reduces your Flesh Giant. So Flesh Giant on 4 or 5 is very, very common in that deck. But the flashy one that Dead Draw has popularized is it plays 6 total minions, I believe. I think it is just Stealer, Dark Glare, and I think it is Nightshade Matron. I'm not sure if he plays the Matron and Hand of Gul'dan combo or not. Or maybe it's a different minion. But it definitely plays Dark Glare and Stealer. And basically the goal here is free admission or Ruined Mithril Rod, which are both very powerful, to reduce the cost of those cards. And then you end up doing Dark Glare, Stealer, and then you draw cards somehow. You can life tap into them, you can backfire into them, whatever. You basically complete all 3 stages of the quest in 1 turn. You basically get all the way through it. You have plenty of life gain to get some of that life back, but your goal is to not need it, because then you play Tamsin, and then after you play Tamsin, and then Stealer and card draw, you don't pay mana for your cards, and your opponent also dies. It becomes really gross really, really quickly. Now, the deck is definitely flashy, but not a win rate outlier currently. In fact, it is below the 50% win rate mark. However, when it wins, it feels like it breaks every rule that Hearthstone has. And Stealer of Souls in particular is just like it just throws mana at you at the cost of your opponent's life total, and it feels pretty crazy when it gets going. Now, I don't think this will be a meta deck, but I do think the experience of losing to this deck is pretty awful. Playing the deck is very difficult, and I played it on stream a couple times, and even the game where I won, where I got matched up against Enthrallment, I thought I had finished Phase 3 of the quest, and I had just finished Phase 2 of the quest, so I passed with 4 mana up without life tapping. So there's some room for pilot error, shall we say.
I have been demonstrating Sealer of Souls in Demon Zoo. That was my own creation. I like to at least start out usually doing my own decks that I built. And pretty much my game plan against Mage was stick a Stealer of Souls on 3 or 4. And if they don't deal with it, they probably just die a lot of the time. I mean, it would vary depending on how much draw I could get. But I definitely had games where turn 4, I had a massive board of demons that I buffed with the new tradable dude that 5 mana, give your demons +2/+2. Just
Shady Bartender,
get one of those,
which
cost
is
life.
awesome.
It's so cool, but it's really hard to play a zoo right now. I did end up having to put in robes, and even that sometimes doesn't save you.
It's a hard deck to play, and I actually, I'm looking at Gabby's newest list now. Doesn't even play Dark Glare anymore. It's just almost full control that includes Spice Bread Baker, and it has 1 gadget. Gosh, this is such a high
Spice Bread
deck.
Baker. I love that card
Oh, it's so good.
much.
So good.
It's just like, yeah, it's definitely, it feels like Antique Healbot. Feels like a better Antique Healbot because it costs 1 less. And also we have our card reveal, which you use on it afterwards, so you gain 13 life.
Oh,
in
Touch
a
of the
turn.
Nathers, and yeah.
Oh yeah, it's so good. And then you get it back. Then you get it back with Raise Dead, and you're like, who cares?
Yes.
In life.
So, and that's kind of the combo-y section of the meta. And there are also a bunch of minion-y decks. And these have started to pop up more lately. There are some from last meta that have gotten a couple additions that are maybe less exciting. For example, Face Hunter. It was the first game I played of the expansion at Schwal's request in my channel. He spent channel points on it. And I played against a mage that had flow on 2, flow on 4, and then I killed them on turn 6. And I was like, hey, the format is balanced. What are you talking about? Because Aimed Shot is a ridiculous card. Completely absurd card. But Face Hunter's really not all that different.
Aim shot is kill command, except you always have the beast.
And you can split up the damage.
Yes, true.
Yeah. So just like way better. Yeah. Yeah. Like when you use it on a minion, it doesn't feel awful anymore because you only have to use the 3 and then you have the 2 left over. Like it's, you're not killing a 5 health minion with it, but you shouldn't be doing that in Face Hunter anyways. That's just not how it works. Elemental Shaman, basically the same deck except it plays the new Elemental, the Granite guy, the Thaurissan for Elementals everywhere in your entire deck, and also Canal Slogger, the Ziliax, the 6/4 Rusher Lifestealer dude that is obviously very strong.
It was not strong day 1, but it got a lot stronger.
Yes. way, way stronger day 2. It gives them so much time to Doomhammer you into next year. And most of these lists are playing Doomhammer in my experience. I can't say 100%, like I've seen a couple Whack-A-Null Hammers and a couple Auctioneer's Gavels, but it seems to be mostly Doomhammer and then you die eventually.
Yeah, have you ever gotten... What's the Firefly called that reduces...
Kindling Elemental.
You ever gotten Kindling Elemental into a coined 3-mana 4/5 that reduces all the elementals in hand? I had that happen to me. It was pretty brutal.
So that changes Kindling Elemental in just a persistent, permanent effect for the entire game.
I did have a game where my opponent went turn 1, the 1/3, turn 2, Kindling, 2/2 Elemental, hit you for 5. And I was like, oh, I guess I should have flurried on turn 1 when I played the quest. Oops.
That's what you get. Yep. So there's that, and then the Rush Warrior apparently, by the way, is good, but everyone is kind of bored of it, so that's coming back. But Hockey Boys just posted a message in our Discord about Rokara with the Wind Fury thing, and that sounds disgusting. I don't feel good right now. It feels not okay. I mean, I guess
like
that
what I want to be doing.
Well, yeah, I guess that operates under the assumption that you stick a Rokara, which is, just like one of my favorite things to daydream about if it'll ever happen. You just play a Rokara and the next turn you keep it. But yeah, still seems very powerful. And then the minion deck that has the most cards from Stormwind is Hand Buff Paladin, Divine Shield Hand Buff Paladin, which Edelweiss, you were talking about this quite a bit for the theory crafting streams. It's worked out. It's really good.
Yeah, that's why I have played, none of it since the set came out.
You hipster.
It's sad too because
so much Handbook Paladin on the theory crafting stream. I think I only had 3 losses in a few hours, and I'm sure it was not even optimized list because I wasn't running Battle Masters, but it felt really good. And then the set comes out, and go figure, it's really good. I believe it is highest win rate deck on HS Replay.
Right now, Diamond through Legend, United, and Stormwind, it is Face Hunter and Hand Buff Paladin are both in the 59% rank. Face Hunter is technically a little higher. But that's going to depend just on, how much greedy stuff people are playing. But it's, Hand Buff Paladin is still, angling for Tier 1. Not just Tier 1, the best deck in the game. It's up there. It's in the conversation.
It's quite strong. And I think the core thing that drives it is, the hand buff stuff is pretty good. But it's also just an aggressive build and lots of Divine Shields, so it's challenging to get a full clear. And right now, if you leave up 2 minions and your opponent has 6 mana, you could just die because they will go Conviction, Battleground Battlemaster, and hit you for 1 million.
Yeah, I know you say the core of it is that the minions are sticky, but also the core of it is that Conviction costs 1 mana, and that seems not correct anymore. I don't know if it was correct before, but it definitely feels not correct now. Maybe a 2 mana. Maybe that could cost 2.
Said this. Me and Edelweiss were all about this, and then they changed frickin' Hand of a Doll or whatever that card is.
Hand of a Doll and First Day of School and Sword of the Fallen. Yeah.
That was important. The Hand of a Doll change
true.
was very important, very impactful. It really is noticeable when 1 health minions become 2 health minions, only 3 2s or whatever. You still get to kill those with First Flame or whatever 2 damage removal spell you're using. But yeah, the fact that Conviction is often 1 mana Fireball, and now with Battlemaster, 1 mana Pyroblast +2 is perhaps not okay.
1 mana deal
It's
12.
It's almost
more.
quest completed Pyroblast. Mage quest completed Pyroblast.
Yes, it's powerful. And also, I will say, if you look, you know those magic eye things where you have to like point your eyes in 2 directions and one picture turns into another. If you look at Prismatic Jewel Kit and you do the magic eye thing, it actually is conditioning rank 3. If you just move your eyes apart a little bit, and it's like, oh, that's +3/+3 to my entire hand. That's what I get in Warrior for double the mana on turn 10. And you play that on turn 1. So, just think about that. Just thinking about that. And of course, I looked at the win rate of Handbuff Paladin and a bunch of decks before the show, and the number 1 keep is Bannerman, which cards. That's the for those that don't know, 3 mana 2/2, draw a minion, and then give your entire hand +1/+1. It's a silly card. It's very, really good. And no one is punishing you for playing a 2/2 on turn 3. Not that they can really punish you because you played Divine Shields before and after, and like you just play that into the First Blade of Rin, which is the 4 mana 3/5 that if it has 4 attack, it has rush, and it also has Divine Shield. That's any tempo you may have lost by playing a 3 mana 2/2 is regained by 4 mana 4/6 Divine Shield Rush. That kind of undoes the damage there.
And it's kind of what the whole deck is about, honestly, is you sacrifice early game tempo for just massive swings. First Blade of Rin is that way. The new 1/4, 3 mana 1/4 with Lifesteal that does damage to an enemy minion as a battle cry. Same deal. I've had games where I just greed that out, and then you remove their biggest thing, and you have this massive lifesteal minion in play afterwards, and it just shuts down any other aggressive lists. Also had games where you just get it out early, and then you Conviction to buff it up and gain your life that way. I believe you still have Samuro. Maybe not if there's not enough other minion decks around, but certainly it's, a possible inclusion.
You need it for the mirror now. You have to have it for the mirror.
And there's the 2/3, the basically Serenite beast. That is really good, even with +1/+1. Just being able to play Bannerman and then turn 4, play a pair of 3/4 taunts, really good for coming back. So, Bannerman is the way to most consistently get that first buff, which is really important for the deck.
I think it also plays one of my favorite cards from the set, which would be Varian. Even though most games you don't get the chance to play him, it's just it's like a great tempo card that's costed correctly and gives you value and just kind of gets you back in the game, but it doesn't feel like whenever I was playing like Face Hunter and you draw Barack Code Obama, it just like felt or Warrior with
Watley, it just felt kind of like one of those cards where like if you didn't draw this card, you just ran out of gas. Whereas this one comes in so late that most of the time you're probably going to see it by that time. And also, obviously you play where is it? Oh, this list doesn't play Talon. I mean, some lists play Talon, which would draw you Varian and kind of get you back in the game. I just think it's like such a cool card because it kind of, I don't know, it plays good defense in a sense to give you the time to get use out of your value. Yeah. It allows your deck to keep working when normally this kind of mid-rangey thing would gas out, and it rewards you for playing 8 mana cards. It feels not quite like a hero card like a Galakron, but somewhere in that ballpark of just you're able to gas back up and swing the board. But to get to turn 8 and then play a minion that doesn't go face right away in this format is still like a big ask. And also if you play that against a mage or whatever, you get devolving or frozen or whatever. It's not a card that should be universally included, I think. And a lot of people are deciding whether or not they cut it. A lot of people are trying to figure out, do I include High Lord 4 Dragon? Do I include Cornelius Rome? What are they looking to play at the end of the game? And there's not consensus there. But I do enjoy the experience of paying 8 for Varian, and what I get for that feels fair but enjoyable as a player.
Varian is my favorite card in the set, I think, and so it's been a real bummer sort of watching it get cut because it's just not fast enough. And the games where you get one, any more than one, but even one is just good enough of the buffs from 4 Dragon are just kind of goofy. They're such big numbers.
Yes.
It's an expensive neutral that doesn't win the game on the spot, but still feels good to play. There's like been so few cards that are like that.
Kind of like a
right?
Lich King.
It's so hard.
Kind of like a Lich King.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But less random, which is great. It's like, I don't know. It's like just such a great card. I think it's probably my favorite. That I kind of thought like it also gives interesting deck building options. Like I was playing it in Quest Shaman on day one because it obviously draws Canal Sloggers, but it can also draw like an Alakir or and also like it triggers your I was trying to find expensive cards that I don't mind playing that you can corrupt your 4-cost spell. So I think it has uses in other decks too. I just thought it's just a cool card, I think.
Yes. So that's the minion decks. Now let's talk about the control decks. All right, that was fun. So let's move on. Just to stop real quick here. Right now, okay. First of all, control is never good the first week of any expansion ever unless something is really wrong, like they print Dr. Boom Mad Genius at 7 mana and then leave it there for some reason. Otherwise, first week of a meta, you're not going to see control because people don't know what they're controlling. It's just not usually a good idea. Decks tend to be greedier, tend to be less optimized, there tends to be less aggro to police them. So the greedy decks also that Blizzard has printed this expansion, the Quest Warlock and Quest Mage, for example, along with the Rogue decks. If there was ever a time to not play control, it's right now, because there are a lot of ways for you to just die for taking your time. And we'll talk about the power level of the format in the next bit after we go through some of the cards, some of the decks, whatever. But games don't go long enough for you to gain control, and you can't really be an attrition-based deck here. You have to kill your opponent before they kill you. And even something like the Priest Quest seems to be too slow at that right now. You have to have something faster. And so it remains to be seen if there will be a control deck that maybe use the Warrior or the Priest Quest or maybe has some other win condition. But as of right now, there isn't a way to consistently slow the game down and win because you did that. There are some people that are having success with Priest. Like Oron hit rank 1 legend with a very teched out Priest list, but that success has not been replicated. And I would imagine that in the first week of qualifiers, we see almost all proactive decks. What control looks like now is something more like Quest Shaman, which Jomber has been playing to some success, tops out at 4, but you need to take your time. You need to get through the game and clear all 8 things, and then you end up killing them with spells and like charge calls and landslides and whatever. But that's what a control deck looks like. You're just an impatient mid-range deck, right? Like it's you survive the early game and then flip the switch. But there's no hard attrition-based strategy that can really be effective at the moment. People were just complaining about attrition last month.
I believe it was intentional removing attrition-based strategy. And, it's always a crapshoot to try and think about, well, what was designer intent? But I like thinking about it. And in my head, it almost seems as though they were aiming for, okay, we want even control decks to have win conditions. Like you're going to be forced to win the game rather than just outvalue your opponent because so many of these quests are just infinite value in some way. Or in Mage's case, the spell damage isn't infinite value, but the ignites are. And the Warrior quest, which we aren't really seeing much, that is also infinite value. It's just there's all these ways to end the game, but instead of sort of how I thought Quest Warlock might be, which was a very controlling, spice bread baker, and you just keep killing their boards and stuff, and then you win with fatigue, it's just gone full combo.
Well, there are some control-y builds, like No Hands Gamer is working on one that had a lot more control stuff. It actually played the Delete Warlock cards, the 3/3 that deals 6, and the 6/6 taunt that if you have 10 or less card, it costs 1. Because it's games move towards a conclusion from the very beginning. And they've always done that to some degree, but now it is something that is clear in both players' minds. How is one player going to kill the other one, not how is one player going to run out of things to do. Nobody runs out of things to do anymore. They run out of time, but it's not the sort of situation where one player lacks a way to end the game and the other player cashes in on that. So it remains to be seen if that will end up happening with like the Warrior quest, or if the Priest quest ends up being as slow as things get. And you can play controlling cards, but the best removal is opponent removal, and there is plenty of that right now. There are other decks that are going around, and again, this is very, very early on, but Quest Druid looks like it's doing pretty well, and it's actually pretty solid against some of the other Quest decks, like Mage in particular, because you gain an absurd amount of armor. Gallon posted a screenshot where he said, Quest Warlock does not seem that hard to beat. He had 67 armor and 20 attack, and his opponent was at 20. So you don't have to worry too much about damage when you're at 87. But his opponent died anyway. And, there are a few other things going on. You can still play Death Rattle Demon Hunter. That deck's still good. I actually played a deck today. It's called Zoo. It has demons, and then it has a 5-mana 4/4 that gives all your demons +2/+2. And I gave my whole board +2/+2, and it was good. And then I lost to Canal Slogger. But it was close!
How do you feel about
really want to
tradable,
do
by
that.
the way?
Oh, tradable. do you
Tradable
feel
feels
about
good.
I
Feels
think it's
good.
I think it's one
I
of my
like
favorite
it.
mechanics they've ever printed.
It's just it's like simple and enjoyable to use, and you have to think about it, and the cards we're including are cards we want to include for the most part, unless you're talking about combo Demon Hunter, which my version has 2 snakes in it to destroy weapons, but I've definitely got a lot of weapons that I would have lost the game had they had them. Like I've killed a lot of Doom Hammers. I've destroyed a lot of Doom Hammers.
Yep. The mechanics of it feel fun. And like Jombre, he built a couple Jombre decks, of course, but there was a Fell Demon Hunter that I was playing that was really fun. And you play Tusk Piercer just to tutor out Persistent Peddler so you can trade him back. Like just to draw you an extra card. And trading isn't something that you want to regularly be doing, but when you have a mana up, doing nothing feels bad, and trading feels kind of good. And I don't know if it's the best way to win a game, but it feels like I'm doing a thing. It feels like that's doing something that matters. And in Quest Demon Hunter decks, you can actually use tradable to just clear the quest, and like that's good. Just getting that one extra card so your Spectral Sight works.
There's kind of silly instances you can have as well with like if you're mage and you're not playing an auctioneer version and you're just like down to the end of your deck and all you have are fire sails and ignites, and so you just, well, if I miss the ignite, we just trade the fire sail back in until we hit the ignite. And tradable in the Quest Demon Hunter is just like really helpful. I've had times where I completed a part of the quest because I just like traded 2 or 3 times in one turn.
Yeah. I feel like every deck except Handbuff Paladin has just a smidgen of tradable in it. I feel like every deck I've
Face
played
Hunter
just
doesn't.
has like a small... I haven't played Face Hunter, so... But basically everything just has like a small amount of tradable that most of the time I just want to play the card, but sometimes I trade it in and it feels okay, and I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Except the biggest problem, especially if you play your cards to the right, if you are used to dragging to the right, the area between the end turn button, your deck, and the right side of the board is the zone of shame. And if you drag to the wrong place, you are in the zone of shame. Meant to trade it? You played it. That's unfortunate. Meant to trade it? I ended my turn with 4 mana up. That's unfortunate. You concede. And you live in the zone of shame. You must be very careful, especially if you're trying to trade during a high APM turn. Just, you need to hover for a second. Those spinning green arrows. Clutch. Really, really important that they have those spinning green arrows when you hold over the deck. Because without those, I would just miss the trade like half the time. And I'm fortunate that I dragged to the left. But if you are a right dragger, be careful, or you will be trapped in the zone of shame.
Speaking of like zone specific things, have either of you played mobile at all?
Yes.
iPad.
Have you played against a demon hunter that's had the draw a card the next turn, reduce its cost by 1, lightning bolt on it while you're playing on mobile? Because I was having issues where I was trying to drag to their face, but I would drag a little too far, and it wouldn't complete it would think that I'm trying to click on the thing to figure out what the lightning bolt is, and it wasn't, so it would cancel the attacks when I was trying to drag to face. Happened to me a bunch of times.
I have not had that experience.
Yeah, I don't remember anything like that. But
Yeah.
I believe you.
There are definitely a couple rough edges on mobile right now, I think. Like, it's if you have your hand open when quest lines things complete, then it overlaps with the card cost, and there definitely, like, there's a little bit of animation hinkiness in general. But I haven't had any particular issues on mobile. However, I have seen other people, especially those on older devices, that have definitely run into some problems. So I can't speak to specifics, but I do think the mobile experience is something that anytime they release a major patch, this happens, just because new cards tend to cause problems. And if you're running at the base 30 FPS frame rate, especially on an older device, if you were against some players in those high APM decks, especially Steeler Quest Warlock, you might just end up getting your turn like cut in half or skipped because you have to wait for the animations to process and all that. But yeah, I haven't had any functionality bugs personally.
Yeah, I just thought I thought it was weird because I was trying to finish my turn quickly, and it just like every time I dragged over to their face, I guess because I'm on a iPhone, I guess the screen's like maybe not as big as other devices. Is just like if I wanted to do it, I had to drag it to the bottom of their portrait instead of just to the top of my screen. Because whenever I went to the top of the screen, it would cancel whatever attack as if I was like dragging off of it.
I'm on Android. I'm going to try that on my iPad later and see if I can replicate.
Yeah, try dragging to like the top of their portrait and see if it cancels it.
Ah, interesting.
Well, there's one deck that we have listed here that we didn't talk about, which probably is not viable anymore. But for a brief time, when it was just the mages and the warlocks and the celestial alignment druids, etc., we had Poison Rogue back again, and it is the only time I ever felt like the hero playing Poison Rogue, because I was just murdering mages, since going stealth against a mage is pretty good. They don't have Mask of Cthulhu anymore, so they just kind of sit there for a turn, and then you hit them in the face again.
I'm not ready to call you the good guy, but I understand what you were doing. I don't know, since United and Stormwind launch, Poison Rogue is tier 2. I imagine that will fall off, and the Paladin matchup is abysmal. Unwinnable, perhaps. Also, Quest Druid matchup, hilariously unwinnable. You can never win the Quest Druid matchup, ever. But there is some merit to it.
Quest Druid cannot beat a 2-mana 2/3 with Taunt. You never beat that card because they get 2 of them, and you cannot beat 2 taunts ever.
Oh yeah,
I don't care what you're doing. You can't beat a couple taunts with Quest Druid.
And you
lose too much damage.
There are a lot of decks that are just happening now that aren't there yet because the meta isn't a meta. Viper is top 100 with an aggro taunt druid with Battlemaster and Oracle of Elune. You end up with 2 of the Battlemaster. They reduce all your taunt by 2. So then you play some 0 mana taunts and they get doubled by the Oracle of Elune. Like it gets really goofy really fast, and you have basically 2 Power of the Wilds and Arbor up as well. There are Quest Paladins apparently tier 2. Anaconda Druid apparently still good. Clown Druid apparently still good. Quest Hunter is apparently
God,
tier 3.
I wish Handbuff Paladin was a little worse because I was playing a bit of Quest Paladin. It's so cool. Like,
Yes.
it's a lot of fun, like, completing it. Like, you complete it quickly, you get the rewards, and then you just start bumping out 3/3s, Mind Head, Divine Shield. It's a nice attrition-based deck, except that attrition doesn't exist in the format right now.
Yeah. So,
I did have...
Go ahead.
You mentioned about the Quest Druid not being able to beat taunts. I had probably one of the crazier games in a very long time. I had Katrana Prestor in my Zoo deck, and we managed to play her on 6. The average dragon is way better than the average legendary was when you played Rafam. So I managed to beat this Quest Druid by just playing taunt dragons, and they could never break through. We just ran them out of stuff because they could not deal with the number of taunts that I was putting out. That 4-drop Fell spell that summons 2 1/3s, that's pretty rough for them.
we have found the control deck in the format. It is Dragon Zoo. Clearly. What a world. What an expansion
I
launch.
played some very cheap Deathwings. It was interesting.
So, how do we feel about the power level of this format?
I think it feels very powerful, but it doesn't feel like those expansions we had where there was one deck that was beating everything and there was no answer to it. It really feels like at the moment, I mean, things are still stabilizing and everything, and who knows, maybe Handbuff Paladin is just a notch above everything else, but it really feels like you can play a lot of different stuff. A lot of stuff feels powerful, but nothing feels so good that I'm looking for a nerf right away. There's definitely cards I'm expecting there to be nerfs, but if there wasn't, like at this point in time of recording, Thursday at 7:05 p.m., I would say that if there were no nerfs, I wouldn't be super upset. I think there still probably should be, and there will be touches on it, but I like kind of where we're at the moment.
For me, I feel a little differently. There are some pretty clear outliers in my mind. I think it's cool that we have Battlemaster being played, but I think it's just a little too much with conviction. If I were to consider nerfs, it would be something to Incanter's Flow. I imagine it would be putting it to 3 mana. I would hope that would be good enough. But something to Incanter's Flow and then Conviction to probably 2 mana. Not sure besides that. It's very bizarre, not what I expected from this set. The power level just skyrocketed. And we kind of, I think, didn't realize all the time just where we stood in terms of power level previously. We knew, and I kept saying this, that it was the least number of cards we had had ever. Being 4-set meta and being core set, no classic basic. But that has really been demonstrated by the sudden increase now with United in Stormwind. Just a ton of new cards, very, very powerful cards, and it just creates all these synergies that weren't really possible in a 4-set meta. I think the addition of spell tribes also had a big impact, for synergies, obviously. And I like that we're doing powerful things, but it does feel perhaps a little too fast and oftentimes a little too solitaire. Maybe that will end up working itself out in terms of just things finding balance. But I ran into a priest that was running Cult Neophytes and 2-Post and Ogremancer And I was like, I don't think this is what we want people to be resorting to.
Wait a minute. Was
to
that
try and
were they a
have
Shadow Priest?
solutions
Did
to certain
they
things.
go into Shadow form beginning of the game?
I don't think so.
Okay. Because Zacho built a hate priest that it went into shadow form because the only spells in the whole deck were 2 Raise Dead. So he's just like, all right, throw in Benedictus, and just played all the anti-spell tech cards that he could find, and it was actually pretty good.
I think it was a quest deck, actually, which
Okay.
probably
Little
not
different.
what you want to be doing in Priest right now. But yeah, it's just it's interesting that Robes is seeing play, but I think it was not great that you felt like you had to run it, and it doesn't always even get there with Fire Sale. It's just a lot of tech cards floating around in certain things that to me indicate a warping that's taking place, because people are feeling like they have to play those cards to be able to participate. And that's just in aggressive strategies, because as we mentioned, control is just not so much a thing you can do right now.
Yes. I wonder if that'll change. I have complicated feelings around this format. I actually looked because I was curious. From March 30th to July 30th, I played just over 400 games of Standard on PC. Played a bunch of other on mobile, but just on PC. The average game length. How long do you think the average game length was in Barons? And you can assume a little faster because of the decks I play. I didn't play a lot of Control Priest.
15?
9.2 turns. Think about how many games were lost.
9 turns?
Think about how many games in Barons were ended by Alex on 9, right? How often did that
Wow.
happen? That happened a lot.
That's
Right.
well, if the average is over 9, that means at least half of your games are going till turn 11 or 12, right?
Something like that, right? It's the average game
That's a
length was
lot.
around 9 turns. It was actually a little slower than I expected, but you think about it, the amount of very vivid memories I have of the game being ended by Alex on 9, like that was just a thing that happened last format. And usually games, they shoot for an average length of around 7-8 minutes, and probably around that game length. But it's made me realize that, with the exception, of course, of Ash's Demon Hunter, which I think we can all agree was a special case, that at this point, 4-set, 5-set, and 6-set are distinct by design, and there is personal preference as to what you like. Right? Some people are 4-set folks. They want the slower, more attrition-y games. They want more mid-rangey stuff, because remember at the end of Ashes, like Hunter was topping out into Grand Slam and Highlander Hunter, and you could play Pure Paladin without a lot of the cool cards we got in Skolo. And Dexter just kind of felt, a little bit rougher, a little bit incomplete, and that was by design. That's just how it is, and that's kind of how Barons felt as well, that you were just doing mini board-based things, newer slow, and incremental advantage, and so on, and Venomous Scorpid was defining card in the format, which I think we can say that those days are over. Not seeing as many Scorpids. It's not gone. It's definitely not the 3-drop you see everywhere. And you look back at, this feels not too different from Skolo, I think, except the difference in Skolo was that you had these mid-game power spikes where some goofy stuff happened. Solarian, or big Paladin swings, or Guardian Animals, or whatever. The difference is that now, the big mid-game board swings don't do goofy random stuff. They just kill you. You just die. Right? Because they turned up the randomness last year, and they turned it down, so instead they replaced it with card draw and synergy. So, instead of the game continuing, maybe, the game stops. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it is consistent with the power level before, but it's a different outcome than we're used to. Because the past couple of years, instead, it was something crazy and random, and it went into Trollden video, and now we're just dying. Because there's a little bit more consistency. That's fine. Don't have a problem with it. But I don't think it's the sort of thing that you could handle having around for months. Luckily, they don't leave anything around for months anymore. Or even for weeks. But there's so many different things to try. Every class feels like it has more than one thing to do. I played a priest with Elven Archer today. You can do whatever you want in Standard right now. Like, you can do anything. But there are some games that feel like they got stolen, and some mechanisms that feel uninteractive. There's the buzzword. I said it. I imagine they'll nudge some stuff. And here's an Ixar tweet here. You notice we've mentioned nerfs a few times. There's an Ixar tweet that said, basically referencing Deck of Lunacy Mage in the Barons meta, that they moved a little too slowly, and if they could, they would set up a window, if they launched on a Tuesday, for the end of the following week. So, talking about nerfs right now is not reactionary or irresponsible or sensationalist. It is a thing that they do now. And we will have nerfs by the time that we go live next week. So, talking about what they are is not an indication of that we're having a bad time. I'm having a great time. I am trying a little bit of everything. I do expect a lot of the anti-spell tech cards will start to drop off, but it's going to be a push and pull. It reminds me a lot. I'm going to go way back here in Magic the Gathering history. That when you take the Graveyard Hate out of your sideboard, then Dredge beats you. Right now, there is a major tension of push and pull of, do I include Neophytes, Watchposts, whatever, and deal with the spell decks I know I'm going to see and make my matchup worse against all the other stuff, or do I let those decks do their thing and make my matchup better against the other minion decks? Because you don't have to tech for control. But if you don't tech for OTKs right now, you are going to lose to them. Sometimes you will still lose to them. And even if they are not statistically the best decks, there is no way that dying from 22 against a Quest Warlock, when they get to draw 7 cards and play them all and you foot the bill with your own life total, that doesn't feel like that's how it's supposed to work. So I'd imagine there are some cards that they're going to nudge. We'll talk about that in a second here. I think the power level is good. But also I understand there are some people that are going to feel like, hey, this is not what I remember Hearthstone being. I think if we step back and take a look, this is very similar to most 5-set metas. You look at Scholomance. Great, not without its power level issues. They nerfed frequently. Not without its Soul Demon Hunters. Not without its Guardian Animals Druids. Not without its Cyclone Mages. You go back to Saviors. Even without Doom in the Tombs. Even after 5-mana Luna's Pocket Galaxy, which was still 5-mana Luna's Pocket Galaxy, which was as ridiculous as you remember it being, there were still Korkron, Inner Rage, Bloodsworn kill you. Like, that happened. Right? This is how 5-set metas are. 6-set metas get even faster than this. I'm glad they're going to nerf 3 or 4 times, because I cannot imagine how a 6-set meta will look after what we have right now, and the mini-set in the middle of this, but they're going to nerf 4 times, because they nerf once a month. That's just what they do now. And it's an interesting world we live in, and Edelweiss, to correlate with your comment about the smallest standard we ever had, this is also the most powerful average quality standard we ever had, because Core is better than Classic by a lot, and it is very noticeable right now how much better Core is. So yeah, I like it right now. The question, are there too many OTKs? For me, personally, I don't think the OTKs are too good, and I think most of them are overrated, but I don't think that the play rate they currently hold can stay where it is and to leave people satisfied. They need to change some stuff pretty quickly. They will, but I don't think there are too many, and I think that I'd rather have combo and forward-moving gameplay in Standard as opposed to attrition control. But I'm a 5-set meta kind of guy. It's always been the environment that I want. There are some people that I've spoken to that really like the 4-set stuff. Some other people that really look for that pine for the K and C meta. And I think those people are insane, but some people really like those completely juiced powered decks. You know.
So the overall captain at Sequoia, Tom Locke, was saying that he feels like this meta for Hearthstone is one that is a good way of testing and developing your mental health game. Because
that's well said.
There's a lot of stuff that induces tilt because there's a lot of solitaire type decks. So it's really easy to go like, oh, come on, they had flow on 2, or oh, come on, I leave Stealer of Souls up for 1 turn and I'm just dead, or something like that. It's really easy, I think, to get tilted in this meta. And so yeah, just make sure you're taking care of your mental health, tilt health. If you lose 3 games in a row, get up, take a break, get a glass of water, or just focus on something else for a bit. At the very least, go to the bathroom. I don't know. But there's a lot of things that can induce tilt right now, and this is a good moment to work on that side of your game. And it is a core part of your game. I earlier was Diamond 1, very near to hitting Legend, and then I slid down to 4, and it was, it was a losing streak, right? I was streaming, and I should have taken a quick break or something, but I didn't. And even if I'm good at keeping my composure on stream, I'm positive I was like playing worse and kind of slipping. And you do the thing where you start changing your decks or changing cards when you probably shouldn't, and being all over the place. And it just makes the tilt worse because, as you mentioned, you just took out the tech for the thing that you now face, or you just start playing a deck that is, was good against the other matchup, but is worse against what you end up facing. So
the I can't win with anything feels so bad when you're like switching decks, and you just keep queuing into bad matchups, or you get a couple bad draws, and you're just like, I can't win with anything in this format. Everything except this deck sucks. And
That's
then
why
I play
you
that
leave-
deck, and then I get lose to something with a bunch of tech against it.
That's why you leave Face Hunter built. You leave it. That is the break glass in case of tilt. You aimed shot your tilt away. It's very reliable.
Are you saying you aim shot through the tilt? You play through the tilt, Pat? Is that what you're trying to say?
I have
With
not
Face
built this
Hunter?
expansion. I came close. There was one game where my opponent had Tammy, and they were gonna die next turn. And they had 7 mana, nothing in play, and they went Stealer, tap, and the one card they drew was Gadget, and then I died from, I think, 28. I logged out for a minute, but I think that's the most tilted I've got. I don't
Wait.
know, like.
Wouldn't they need more than that? They need they need a spell in hand, right?
Oh, they had a bunch of stuff in hand. Just
Oh,
they had.
okay. I thought
they
you
had
said no
activated
cards in hand.
No, it's nothing in play. But they had a bunch of cards in hand, but it had all been sitting in their hand for a while. They didn't really have a mechanism with which to kill me, and I was at a very high life total, I thought. But it's really just like, I think about how bent out of shape everyone was about Priest being good. I remember that, and whenever attrition-based control is good like that, Dr. Boom control, or attrition-based Priests like we just had, people talk about they want games to end. And I want games to end. I want things to happen. Is it a little bit too splashy right now in a way where I feel like I have no agency over the game? I think it's a hair over the line, right? But I don't think that's just Mage. I don't think that's just Warlock. I think that is Jewel Kit on 1 into you're dead on turn 6 from Conviction Battlemaster. Like, I think that is just as much a combo deck, except it also plays minions. It's the same sort of thing, and there's a lot of that going on in the format because there are a few cards that I think are a little bit too efficient. So, let's get to that, because it's time to place your bets on nerfs. Because it's not a question of if, it's a question of when, and we kind of know when. It will likely be next Thursday. Almost certainly a week from the time of recording. Next Thursday, we should have a balance patch in the game. They confirm it on Monday, and they implement per Ixar's tweet. So, almost certainly that's going to happen. So, what do we think it's going to be besides Incanter's Flow? Because come on, they can't let it get away with another one.
Can they? Can't they? Can't they?
If they didn't nerf that, what would they nerf?
They did last time. They let it get away last time.
I don't know what you would hit besides that at this point. It kind of feels like the last remaining thing. You could put Ignite to 1 damage just so it like feels really bad before you get it ticking.
Maybe, but then you just play 1 Ignite. I have never felt like Ignite is the reason why that deck wins. It's not. It's Flow, and it'd be maybe Cram Session. Maybe Cram. Because Cram after quest completion is completely ridiculous. So I don't know if there's a way
Cram
to
3 mana.
But then you're just killing the card for the sins of Varden. So I don't know exactly how that works. They could nerf the quest reward, but I don't think that they would do that. Like, they could make it the first spell each turn.
I don't know that they make it too. Oh, I was thinking 2 spell damage
Could do that, right?
of 3.
But Flo's mulligan win rate. Anyone have a guess? Diamond and Legend most popular list, Flo's mulligan win rate?
70%.
Yes. Actually, yes.
Holy cow. That's so absurd.
It's 69% actually. Nice.
Nice.
The next closest card is Springwater at 58.4%, which I guess is still correct to keep. And then Ice Barrier's
Correct
number
to
3.
keep that card? Really?
It's the mulligan win rate is high. I guess people are keeping it if they have Flow already.
Probably, yeah. That makes a lot more sense.
But I don't know. So, besides Flow, where do you think they go? What are some? Throw out some answers. What do you think?
Still want Conviction to +2 instead of 2 mana, but I could see 2 mana also just to give an extra turn on the battle. What is it? Is it Battle Master? What is the Wind Fury thing called?
The Battle Master.
Yeah, Battle Master Conviction. Delaying it a turn is useful, but it still just does so much damage. Like 6 is so much damage for 1 mana. It's so much.
Battleground Battlemaster, bringing BG damage to standard.
Yeah.
What else? Like, I don't even know what they would change in Warlock. Not that they even need to change anything.
Stealer doesn't feel like it does what something Hearthstone should do.
Yeah, that's...
Like, I don't know what to do about that card, because I think the design is fundamentally pretty problematic. I don't think that card is ever something you just throw in a zoo deck and you're like, oh, I'm going to play some cheap demons. Like, no, that's not what we're doing here. We're either killing you or not playing the card. So, I don't know if maybe Stealer's a battle cry, maybe it's first draw per turn, maybe it's spells only and not minions. I don't know what they could do with the card, or they could just move the mana cost, but it doesn't feel like Stealer follows the rules of Hearthstone, and also when you die to that card, it feels horrendous.
And also the no-hands version of the list that doesn't play it still feels pretty good. It doesn't play a Stealer, and it feels pretty good, so like I don't think that's like a must keep to have the deck stay I don't want to say healthy, stay relevant, I guess.
There's so many ways to play with that quest, and I think it's one of the more interesting things they've done in Hearthstone in a while, and I want them to keep it. I just don't want people drawing 6 or 7 cards a turn and me paying for all of them with my face. That doesn't feel like that's how that's supposed to work. I don't want that to happen. So yeah, I
Honestly,
think that
I don't
you can't
even
really
know what else you really touch. Like the next highest win rate deck is Shaman, but like
you have to hit Paladin,
right?
If you're gonna nerf Mage, which is Paladin's biggest counter, you have to nerf Paladin. Conviction, I think I would look at Jewel Kit to 2 durability.
Yeah, that too.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I think that card's still pretty strong.
We still play it at 1 mana O2, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think, Edel? Would you change anything else? It's hard to say, because like the format is still taking shape.
Yeah, I mean, those are the standouts. Stealer, Flow, Conviction, Jewel Kit. I think it's just so hard to know what happens to everything else once you nudge those.
Yeah.
So I would be nervous to do any more nerfs than those, because you don't want to do too many things at once. It messes with a ton of variables, and you don't really know where you'll end up.
Yeah.
You think they'd ever change Arbor up? I don't think so, but I'm just looking I'm just looking at like other decks that are winning a lot, and I'm seeing a lot of Druid. I would say the card that stands up to me there is like Arbor up is one of them. Nature Studies is kind of one of them. I mean, Solar Eclipsing anything is pretty good, but I like the card Solar Eclipse, so I kind of don't want them to change it.
It's right now they have a very difficult task, and they'll collect a lot of information over the weekend, right? And the weekend is why they can meet on Monday and they can get together. I don't foresee this being a sweeping change. I foresee this being a deal with the things that are really disruptive play experiences to me. You have to kind of look at Paladin, because if you nerf Mage for being the biggest counter, and for being mage, which I think probably needs a nudge for sentiment reasons and because they can't have the story be the same. First 2 weeks of Barons, mage and paladin. First 2 months of Barons, really. You can't have both those decks be good still, and I think that they'd rather hit a couple paladin cards just to make sure that it doesn't emerge again as the most powerful thing to do. I don't think that Face Hunter's current win rate will stay where it is just because it's farming so much greed. I do wonder if you have to hit something in Shaman, just one card maybe to comp things down there. I don't know what you'd hit. I'm curious. Because I haven't even looked at the stats or played it all that much, but I feel like something in there should probably... You could make that deck a little bit less efficient, still good. But other than that, I think just the cards we talked about, Battlemaster to 4/4, Flow to 3, I guess, Conviction to 2, Jewel Kit to 0/2, Stealer to something. I think that'd be a reasonable start.
The only cards I could even think about for Hunter would be like Pack Runner to a 2/2, or Trampling Rhino to like a 5/4 or something. Something really small if they were to change anything.
If we even
just because
need
like
to...
I feel like I don't even think you need to. I'm just like those would be the cards that stand out to me as kind of outliers in power level, I would say. Not that they're too powerful, just as those are the standout cards whenever I'm looking at them.
Yep.
And
Language Hacker has an excellent suggestion in chat that I hadn't thought about in a while, but makes sense. You could finally move Custodian to 3 because Shaman has enough good cards now. Could do that if you wanted to.
Yes, that makes sense. I like that too.
Also, it means you would no longer confuse it with Menacing Nimbus, because they would have different mana costs, finally. So yeah.
Yeah, maybe even make it a 2/3, make it in line with more of the 3 mana draw cards. But I guess we have the Paladin card that draws a card and buffs everything as a 3 mana 2/2. But
yeah. So I don't anticipate a lot of changes here. I don't think any of us are saying the format needs a lot of changes. Again, it's just with how development windows work, you plan a time for a patch. And in particular, they've got a lot going on this month because 21.2, which we should know, Alex said we'll hear more about that a few weeks after the launch. That's the big Battlegrounds refresh. They need to get that stuff started very quickly, which means they need to get the smaller balance patch out faster. It appears they have picked the time. It should be at the end of next week. Not saying the format needs nerfs right away. I don't think it does, but it's probably going to get nerfs right away. Some people I think will be grateful for that. And just a question of putting ourselves in their shoes, what would they do? What would we do if we were in their shoes? We'll know more after the weekend, and maybe some of these ideas will seem hilariously inaccurate by then. But by the time we do our next show, we should have information on that, and then they will get to work on 21.2, which don't know when that's going to come out. Probably September 2nd, because that's 4 weeks from today. Probably September 2nd. Maybe it's a Tuesday patch, I don't know. And that will be the giant Battlegrounds refresh. That's basically the Battlegrounds rotation with 30-something new minions, which should be awesome.
One more thing to note. We are getting similar popularity outlier as we did, I think, at the start of Barons regarding Quest Mage. It is not the highest win rate deck. Paladin is the highest win rate deck. But when you look at, ranks basically across the board, Quest Mage is highest popularity. It's, getting to dark blue in certain areas, and it's just twice the popularity as the next highest, which is Quest Warlock most of the time. Depends where you are exactly. But it is an outlier, again, because this is a kind of deck that people find really fun. And on top of that, if you had Spell Mage before, you pretty much have Quest Mage now. It's not that different. There's like some changes, but it's basically you had the quest and 2 ignites, and then you're kind of good because you probably had everything else you needed. So that's part of why there's so many techs against Quest Mage, is because it's super popular, in addition to being quite strong. The win rate now is, I'm sure lower than it was initially because it's being so heavily targeted. But yeah, be mindful that these numbers are high just because it's really popular. So if it feels like, gosh, I'm seeing a lot of mage, you are. There's a lot of mage. It is, I think, less than it was for straight spell mage before. I could be wrong on that, but
It's the first 2 weeks of Lunacy Mage were ridiculous. It was nearing 30% of ladder. And
right.
everyone...
This is like...
Yeah. This is more like 16%. It's about half as popular. There's more to do now. And everybody that played with Lunacy on 2 for one game was like, they're not going to let me do this for much longer. I'm going to get it out of my system. Because every single person that did that was like, oh, I see. Well, this in a Grand Slam feels good. I might as well cast it for 7 mana. Yeah. So, I think we're all very excited to play more of this meta and to see where it goes.
Are we doing an official bet this time? Are we betting packs? I don't know.
We have a pretty
Well,
clear idea as to when the patch is happening.
We also don't have 3 cards we can bet on. Like, if there were 3 cards that we were all, like, last time it felt like we all had a card where, like, this is definitely getting nerfed. And then, so I felt like we could bet on that, but unless, and I think we're all fairly in agreement that nerfs are definitely coming next week. And we have an idea what cards we think are highest on the chopping block.
I mean, we could have someone take Conviction, someone take Stealer of Souls, someone take Jewel Kit or something like that.
I will take the bet that I'm still going to play a lot of Hearthstone before and after the nerfs. That's my bet.
That is a safe bet for sure.
I think we can leave it there. I think that's good enough for me. So, we have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website at coincede.com, where you can find our content info, our show notes, our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show, patreon.com/coinconcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. Write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at coinconcede, like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/coinconcede. It's like some CC swag, heading over to our shop, shop.coinconcede.com. Big thanks to our producers, Number Theory, Itinerant Wizard, Doshi K, Proby1, Dr. Fish, Crash Cap, B-Squatch, David P, Snowpack, and Terror, Lucky, Fade to Black, Waldu, and Ponius. Let me make sure I get everyone that subbed during the show. Lots and lots of people. Marty McFly, DM Tierney, Tito Santana 3 times, Doshi K, Vino Spumoni. Thank you so much for your support. And thank you, Donkey, for the raid. Coin concedes. Go ahead, bot.
So I'm going to coin concede this week to Crush, who said I was right, and I agree with him because I like being right. And he mentioned something that I had already forgot about a week later, that I said this was going to be one of the top 5 most powerful sets that they've ever made, and seems close to that. I don't know. We'll see when nerfs come how hard it gets hit, but set's really powerful. Lots of cost reduction means that there's a lot of potential for broken strategies. I think we've seen a lot of broken strategies, but also their win rates aren't high. It's like broken in the sense of what they're doing feels unfair, not necessarily that it is unfair in a win rate distribution type feeling, if that makes sense.
Advice.
So my coin concede this week is to Valera Light, who was one of my opponents, strong Brazilian player in the Supergirl Gamer Pro series that's going on. We were having a ton of issues with the friends list bug, really struggled to get a match going, but she was pretty patient the whole time. We finally managed to play our match, and I ended up winning, but there was an exchange. I don't remember exactly the words, but later she DM'd me on Twitter just to make sure that something that she said that I wasn't offended, because she was worried that the translation was poor, and I had totally not been offended, but I don't think I've ever had that happen where someone like just double checks to make sure that they didn't offend me with something they said after a game of Hearthstone, and I continue to be sort of delighted, at least with my community of women Hearthstone players. It's been a blast. So there's one more Supergirl Gamer Pro qualifier, hoping that I can do well enough in that to make it to the next stage this year as well. But
Good luck.
always have fun with those.
Yes. As for me, just thanks to everyone that came out to the stream. I do my one night only streams. Every time an expansion comes out, they're always great fun. This one was very successful. Thanks for the raids, Banterface and No Hands, to Grandmasters sending me people. We hit some pretty big numbers after, they dropped like a bunch of people on my stream. So thank you so much for everyone who came and had a good time and all the subs and bits and whatever. And then Dragon Rider DK. Donnie and I did a video recording yesterday. My computer wasn't super cooperative. We figured it out on mindset in Hearthstone, because her channel is very big on YouTube. Like, her YouTube channel is big on the advice thing, and I had been tweeting about mindset, as I am known to do. And she said, "Hey, can I quote this?" And I said, "How about I just talk to you?" And she's like, "Yes, let's do that." So I talked for like 30-40 minutes about mindset. It is by far the subject I'm most passionate about. That video should be coming out over on her channel soon. So thank you so much, Dragon Rider, for having me on to talk about it. And that's going to do it. So keep calm and give your minions Wind Fury. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
Where is this? Oh, is this the old outro? It is.
Time to go play some Elven Archers.
Yes. Alright, stopping recording. Yo, chat, thanks so much for hanging out. How often do people actually coin concede Tito? It happens quite a bit, actually. Botticus, you had someone coin concede to you on ladder. Like this week, right? Like 2 days ago.
Wait, how did you know that?
It was posted in our Discord and you were tagged.
I was?
You were.
I don't know. I was coin conceded to, but I don't remember getting tagged in Discord, and I usually check that stuff, but yes.
Maybe you were tagged. I know that I check Discord a lot. I don't know if you were tagged, but I thought you were. Anyways. So yeah, that happened. But alright.
I do receive a decent amount of friend requests that I unfortunately have to decline.
Because you're full?
Full, and also never know when there are when it's a salty person or a friend or a listener of the show.
I am always hopeful that it's a good thing, but there's no way to know for sure. And there are some days where my tolerance for that sort of thing is better, and some days where it's worse. So yeah, I'm right there with you.
I also I did see when Blister Guy posted in the Discord after I savagely destroyed him in a Quest Mage Mirror by playing Flow on 2, and he did not. And then he talked about he was roping. We were typing to each other, and he typed something along the lines of, "I'm roping out my turn because I'm supposed to be working right now and not because I'm losing." And then I proceeded to BM him by showing him I had lethal the last turn and fireballing my own minions and then killing him. Also, did you know that a Pexus Blast deals less damage than Fireball?
I did.
It does. Yeah.
Typically 5 is a smaller number than 6.
Yeah.
By the way, remember when Ben Lee said there might be a little bit of that regarding OTK decks in our interview?
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was a very different... I thought we were going in a very different direction.
Gosh. Didn't the game director also say that more on OTK decks to come?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. He was right. They did stuff.
Yep.
We should go back to listen to that now that the set is out. I bet that we would find it, some things would hit different, as the kids say.
Indeed.
Yeah. But we're going to bring the stream down. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here, and we will talk to you next week.